every year. The supplement industry sells billions of dollars worth of magnesium in capsules, powders, and gummies. Magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate, magnesium threonate. The labels get more technical, the bottles more expensive, the claims more elaborate, and yet, across multiple national health surveys, researchers continue to find that somewhere between 45 and 68% of adults in Western countries fail to meet even the minimum recommended daily intake of this mineral. 45 to 68%. That is not a fringe deficiency. That is the majority of people walking around with cramping muscles, restless nights, a nervous system that won't settle, and an energy that collapses by mid-afternoon, and most of them have never once been told the word magnesium. Here is what strikes me. The foods that concentrate this mineral most efficiently: pumpkin seeds, dark cacao, sesame, almonds. Leafy greens have been present in human diets for thousands of years. They appear in scripture. They appear in ancient pharmacopoeias. They appear in the field manuals of Roman physicians and the medical chapters of Islamic canonical texts. Nobody needed a capsule because the food itself was the medicine. Today, we are breaking down 13 magnesium-rich snacks drawn from the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern nutritional science. We are ranking them from the merely remarkable down to the one that may genuinely surprise you, the snack at number 1 that your ancestors understood on instinct, that scripture names directly, and that recent research has begun to explain at the molecular level. And somewhere around the middle of this list, we are going to pause on a story. A prophet collapses in the wilderness. He has walked until his body fails, and what he is given next twice by a messenger is not medicine. It is food. Specific food. Pay attention when we get there, because that account from the book of 1 Kings contains what may be the oldest recorded description of mineral recovery in human history. Number 13. Roasted chickpeas with pumpkin seeds. In the book of Daniel, chapter 1, the young men from Judah refuse the king's rations, the refined, rich food of the Babylonian court, and ask instead for vegetables and water. 10 days later, they are observed to look healthier and better nourished than those who ate the royal food. Scholars and theologians have long read this as a story about faithfulness, but there is a nutritional dimension worth examining. Legumes and seeds, the foods available to people eating simply and traditionally, deliver mineral profiles that refined court food, stripped of its bran and germ, could not match. Chickpeas were cultivated in the Middle East as early as 7,500 BCE. The Mishnah references them as a staple. Roman physicians, including Dioscorides, documented their use in digestive restoration. Ayurvedic tradition in the Karaka Samhita classified dried legumes among the foods that rebuild strength after illness or exhaustion. A single cup of cooked chickpeas provides roughly 78 milligrams of magnesium, alongside iron, folate, and a fiber profile that slows the movement of everything through the digestive tract, which matters for mineral absorption. Researchers studying legume consumption have found associations between regular intake and improved markers of insulin sensitivity and reduced systemic inflammation, two conditions that directly increase the body's demand for magnesium while simultaneously impairing how efficiently the gut absorbs it. Combine roasted chickpeas with pumpkin seeds, instructions for those in a moment, and you stack 2 magnesium sources into 1 crunchy handful. To prepare: toss cooked, dried chickpeas with olive oil, cumin, and sea salt. Roast at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 to 30 minutes, stirring once halfway through until they snap rather than give. Let them cool completely before combining with raw or lightly toasted pumpkin seeds. They crisp up further as they cool. Store in an open weave container or a jar with the lid slightly ajar. An airtight seal traps moisture and turns the crisp into a soft disappointment within a day. The papitas alongside them taste like something people have been eating for centuries, because they have. When traditional diets built around legumes and seeds are compared to modern processed food diets in population research, the mineral gap is not subtle. The foods didn't disappear because better options arrived. They disappeared because processing was more profitable. Number 12. Whole grain crackers with hummus. The Talmudic tractate Barakot records blessings specific to bread made from the 5 grains wheat, barley, spelt, rye, and oats. These weren't ceremonial distinctions. They reflected the lived experience of what these grains, properly prepared, did for the body. Ancient grain-based bread traditions across Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Levant relied on stone-ground flour, a process that bruises the bran and germ into the flour rather than separating them out. And the bran and germ are precisely where a grain's magnesium is concentrated. Molen industriel rollenmilling, introduced at scale in the 1870s, changed this. The process that produces white flour also removes up to 85% of the grain's original magnesium content. When population researchers look for correlations between dietary patterns and magnesium status, the shift from whole grain to refined grain products is consistently one of the strongest predictors of deficiency. Whole grain crackers made from rye, spelt, or whole wheat, with the bran intact, retain this mineral density, paired with chickpea-based hummus, which itself provides a meaningful magnesium contribution alongside plant-based protein. The combination becomes a genuinely functional snack rather than just a traditional one. Read the ingredient label carefully. Products labeled multigrain or wheat frequently list enriched white flour as the primary ingredient, which means the grain's magnesium has been removed and a narrow band of synthetic vitamins added back. The word whole must appear before the grain name, and it must be the first ingredient, not the third or fourth. Look also for hummus made from whole-cooked chickpeas, rather than chickpea flour or concentrate. The fiber matrix of the whole bean modulates how quickly the minerals move through the digestive tract. A generous smear of hummus on a dense rye cracker, finished with a drizzle of olive oil and a few pumpkin seeds pressed into the top, delivers a snack with legitimate ancient lineage and a mineral profile most processed snack foods cannot approach. Serve it at room temperature. The olive oil and chickpea fat improve the absorption of everything alongside them. Number 11. Tahini with apple slices. Sesame appears in some of the oldest agricultural records known. A Sumerian clay tablet, dated to roughly 4000 BCE references sesame oil in ritual and medicinal contexts. The Ebers Papyrus, the Egyptian medical document compiled around 1550 BCE, and drawing on traditions far older lists sesame among the restorative substances administered after physical depletion. Avicenna's 11th century Canon of Medicine, one of the most comprehensive medical texts of the medieval world, classified sesame seed preparations as strengthening to the muscles and calming to the nervous system. What none of these sources named, but all of them seem to grasp, is that sesame seeds are extraordinarily dense in magnesium. 2 tablespoons of raw tahini, which is simply ground sesame seed paste, provide approximately 28 milligrams of magnesium alongside calcium, zinc, and a specific lignin compound called sesamet, which research suggests may influence cortisol metabolism, the body's primary stress hormone pathway. Here is the detail most people never hear about sesame. The hull contains the majority of the calcium, but the interior kernel concentrates the magnesium. Unhulled tahini, which is darker, slightly bitter, and far more nutritionally dense, retains both. Most commercially available tahini is made from hulled seeds, which produces a milder flavor but delivers a thinner nutritional profile. If you can locate unhulled or whole tahini, the difference in mineral content is meaningful. Slice an apple into wedges. Spoon raw or lightly toasted tahini generously over each slice. Finish with a dusting of cinnamon, a spice with its own peer-reviewed associations with improved insulin sensitivity, and a small pinch of sea salt, which sharpens the sesame flavor and also provides trace minerals absent from table salt. This is not a new idea. Sesame and fruit combinations appear across Persian, Egyptian, and Levantine culinary traditions. For reasons that predate any laboratory, they arrived at it by observation. The observation was correct. Number 10. Chia seed pudding. The Franciscan Friar Bernardino de Sahagún writing in the 16th century about Aztec civilization, documented that chia seeds were among the 4 primary crops alongside maize, beans, and amaranth on which the empire's tribute economy ran. Warriors carried chia as portable fuel. Runners who delivered messages across vast distances reportedly consumed it mixed with water as their primary sustenance. The Aztec word for strength was chia, independent of Mesoamerica. Seeds, from the same botanical family, the mint family, Lamiaceae, appear in traditional Chinese medicine texts, including the Benchao Gangmu, as sources of sustained energy and calm. This convergence across cultures separated by oceans is the kind of pattern that tends to mean something. Modern analysis explains part of it. Chia seeds provide approximately 95 milligrams of magnesium per ounce. Alongside alpha-linolenic acid, the plant form omega-3 fatty acid and a soluble fiber that forms a gel when it contacts liquid. That gel is important. It slows gastric emptying, which means the magnesium in chia is released gradually into the digestive tract rather than flooding it at once. Slow, steady, mineral availability is more physiologically useful than a single large dose that the intestines cannot fully absorb in one pass. Magnesium's role in NMDA receptor regulation, the neurological pathway associated with excitatory signaling in the brain, is documented. When magnesium is adequate, this receptor is properly gated. When it runs low, the receptor stays open longer than it should, contributing to the wired, anxious, unable to settle feeling that many people accept as their normal. This is not a personality trait. It is frequently a mineral state. To prepare, combine 3 tablespoons of chia seeds with 1 cup of your preferred milk in a jar. Stir thoroughly. Wait 5 minutes. Stir again to break up any clumping. Then refrigerate overnight. The seeds will absorb the liquid and form a pudding with a texture reminiscent of tapioca. Top in the morning with fresh berries or sliced bananas. Prepare 4 or 5 jars at once. They are kept refrigerated for 5 days without degrading in texture or mineral content. This is not a quick fix. It is a daily practice, which is how traditional cultures used it. Number 9. Almond butter banana bites. In the first chapter of Numbers, the Israelites in the wilderness are counted, organized, and provisioned. The provisions described throughout the wilderness narratives include nuts carried from the land of Canaan, mentioned in Genesis 43, when Jacob sends his sons to Egypt with nuts among the gifts. Almonds are named specifically in Exodus 25 as the pattern for the lampstand of the tabernacle. They were familiar enough to be used as architectural metaphor, which is only possible when a food is so woven into daily life, it becomes symbolic. Almonds traveled ancient trade routes from the Mediterranean and Central Asia for centuries. Valued as a shelf-stable, portable, calorie-dense food. Traditional Chinese medicine classified almonds as nourishing to the lungs and calming to the nerves. Hildegard of Bingen, the 12th century abbess and physician, whose Physica remains one of the most detailed medieval European herbals, wrote that almonds warmed and supported those who had grown cold and depleted from illness. 1 ounce of almonds provides approximately 76 milligrams of magnesium, making them one of the more concentrated tree nut sources. Combined with banana, which provides potassium, the mineral pairing activates a well-documented physiological synergy. Magnesium and potassium are both required for the sodium-potassium pump. The mechanism embedded in every cell membrane that maintains the electrical gradient cells need to function. When either mineral falls short, the pump works inefficiently. Muscle cramping, irregular heartbeat sensations, and fatigue are the downstream results. Clinical research on co-supplementation of both minerals has shown improved outcomes for muscle cramping and blood pressure regulation compared to supplementing either one alone. Slice a banana into rounds. Top each round with a small, deliberate dollop of raw almond butter, not roasted. If possible, since raw almonds retain more of their vitamin E, which protects the fats from oxidizing during digestion. Finish with a few chia seeds pressed into the top. It takes 2 minutes. The mineral synergy in that 2 minutes is one that took traditional food cultures, generations of observation, to identify and modern biochemistry several decades to explain. Number 8. Avocado, whole grain toast with pumpkin seeds. The Aztec word for avocado ahuacatl appears in Aztec tribute records as early as 900 CE. The Florentine Codex, compiled by Sahagún from indigenous Aztec sources, notes that avocado was given to convalescents, recovering from illness, and to women after childbirth. These are not arbitrary choices. Fat-rich foods were understood across multiple traditional systems as restorative and strengthening in contexts of depletion. Here is the detail that changes how you think about avocado in the context of mineral absorption. The bioavailability of magnesium, the proportion of the mineral that actually crosses the intestinal wall and enters circulation, is not a fixed number. It varies significantly, depending on what accompanies the mineral in the meal. Dietary fat improves the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients, but it also appears to support the integrity of the intestinal mucosa, the absorptive surface through which water-soluble minerals, like magnesium, pass. Research on avocado consumption has found that adding avocado to a meal measurably increases the absorption of carotenoids from the same meal, a documented fat-mineral synergy that researchers believe extends to other micronutrients. This means avocado toast with pumpkin seeds is not simply a stacking of magnesium sources. The avocado is actively improving the absorption of the magnesium in both the seeds and the whole grain bread alongside it. Whole grain or true sourdough bread, made through slow lactic acid fermentation rather than commercial yeast, adds a third dimension. The fermentation process degrades phytic acid, the organic compound in grains that binds to minerals and reduces their absorption. A properly fermented sourdough measurably delivers more bioavailable minerals than an identically composed loaf raised with instant yeast. Mash half a ripe avocado onto dense whole grain or sourdough bread. Season with sea salt, black pepper, and a small squeeze of lemon. The acidity further supports mineral uptake. Finish with a generous scatter of raw pumpkin seeds. 3 distinct magnesium sources. 1 functional synergy. 1 ancient food tradition reread through a modern nutritional lens. Number 7. Dark chocolate and pumpkin seed clusters. In 1 Kings, chapter 19, the prophet Elijah has just experienced the greatest triumph of his ministry. He is called fire from heaven. The false prophets have been confronted, and then, almost immediately, he runs. He runs into the wilderness. He walks a day's journey beyond that. He sits down under a broom tree and tells God he has had enough. He wants to die. He lies down and he sleeps. This is not melodrama. This is physiology. Exercise physiologists studying extreme physical and emotional stress have documented a pattern that matches what the text describes precisely. After a period of intense exertion followed by acute psychological threat, the combination Elijah experienced, the body can enter a state of profound catecholamine crash. Adrenaline levels that surge during the confrontation drop sharply. Glycogen stores, depleted by the physical and psychological demands of the preceding hours, are exhausted. The result is not ordinary tiredness. It is a collapse of the body's entire energy regulation system. What happens next in the text is what I want you to notice. An angel touches him and says, "Arise and eat." He looks, and there beside his head is a cake baked on hot coals and a jar of water. He eats, he drinks, he lies down again. The angel comes a second time, touches him again, says, "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you." He eats a second time, and then he rises and walks 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. That is not a spiritual metaphor dressed in nutritional clothing. That is a 2-stage refeeding protocol. The first meal begins the process of glucose restoration and fluid replacement. The second, given specifically because the journey ahead is long, completes the glycogen loading and begins mineral recovery. The Hebrew word used for the cake, uga, describes a dense, grain-based flatbread. The jar of water suggests electrolyte-containing water from a desert spring, not filtered tap, and the sequence rest, first feeding, rest again, Second feeding. Then, sustained physical exertion mirrors what modern sports nutrition research identifies as optimal recovery from extreme physical depletion. Now consider what cacao and pumpkin seeds bring to that story. Cacao theobroma cacao. Food of the gods, is among the most magnesium-dense foods on Earth, providing approximately 64 milligrams per ounce of raw cacao powder. The flavonols in cacao, epicatechin and catechin, primarily have documented effects on nitric oxide production and vascular relaxation, improving blood flow to depleted muscle tissue. Pumpkin seeds sit alongside cacao in magnesium density. Adding zinc and tryptophan, the amino acid precursor to serotonin, to the mineral contribution. Together, these two foods address the three primary deficits of extreme depletion: mineral loss, vascular restriction, and neurotransmitter collapse. Elijah didn't have a label for any of this. He had an angel, a fire, and food placed beside his head. The journey was indeed too great, and the food was adequate for it. To prepare pumpkin seed and dark chocolate clusters, melt 70% or higher dark chocolate slowly over a double boiler or in a bowl set over simmering water, keeping the temperature below 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Above that threshold, the flavonol compounds that provide the vascular benefits begin to degrade. Stir in raw pumpkin seeds, 1 part seeds to 1 part chocolate, by volume. Spread the mixture thin on parchment paper. Refrigerate for at least 40 minutes until the chocolate snaps cleanly. Break into clusters and store in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. The cold storage is not optional. The fat in dark chocolate oxidizes at room temperature more quickly than most people expect, which degrades both flavor and the integrity of the antioxidant compounds. Keep them cold. Eat them in the morning or after any period of sustained exertion. The prophet walked 40 days on 2 meals. Begin where you can. If the kind of ancient knowledge covered in this video speaks to something in you, hit like and subscribe. What is coming in the second half of this list goes even deeper. Number 6. Sea-salted roasted pumpkin seeds. Papita. The Mesoamerican term for pumpkin seeds. Appears in Aztec tribute records collected by Spanish administrators in the 16th century, alongside cacao and amaranth, the foods that were demanded in tribute precisely because of their concentrated value. The Aztec Medical Codex, portions of which Sahagún preserved, describes pumpkin seeds as a specific remedy for intestinal parasites when consumed in quantity, a use that modern analysis has partially validated through the compound cucurbittin found in the seeds. But medicinal uses aside, pumpkin seeds were daily food. The people who ate them regularly weren't consuming them as medicine. They were consuming them because the seeds were available, satisfying, and seemed to correlate with sustained physical capacity. The numbers behind this are striking. A single ounce of raw pumpkin seeds, approximately a small handful, provides 156 milligrams of magnesium. The adult recommended daily intake ranges between 310 and 420 milligrams depending on age and sex. That means 1 ounce of pumpkin seeds covers approximately 37 to 50% of daily magnesium requirement. No other common snack food achieves that density in so small a volume. Pumpkin seeds also contain a compound called delta-7 sterols, plant sterols that differ structurally from the beta-sitosterol found in most other seeds. Research on delta-7 sterols has examined their potential role in supporting prostate health in men, an area where Ayurvedic tradition independently recommended pumpkin seeds for what ancient physicians called difficulties of the water passage. The research is early. The pattern is not coincidental. To roast, spread raw pumpkin seeds in a single layer on a baking sheet. Drizzle lightly with olive oil and a generous pinch of flaky sea salt. Roast at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, not the higher temperature called for in many recipes. The lower temperature preserves the delicate polyunsaturated fats in the seeds, which oxidize quickly above 320 degrees Fahrenheit, turning a health food into a source of oxidized lipids that work against the anti-inflammatory goals of everything else on this list. 20 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Stir once at the 10-minute mark. Remove when the seeds are golden and snap cleanly in half. They crisp further as they cool. Keep a jar on the counter. Open. Visible. The research on behavior change around healthy eating is unambiguous. Foods that require no preparation and are within arm's reach get eaten. Foods stored in a cabinet in a sealed bag do not. Make this easy. Number 5. Cashew and dried apricot trail mix. The Capitulaire de Villis. Charlemagne's 9th century royal decree governing the management of imperial estates lists nut orchards among the required plantings on every estate, alongside medicinal herb gardens and fruit trees. This was not aesthetics. This was a nutritional policy decision. Nuts were understood as a foundational food, dense enough in energy and minerals to sustain armies on campaign, shelf-stable enough to last through winter, and nutritionally complete enough to fill the gap when grain or meat was unavailable. Cashews were unknown to Charlemagne. They are native to Brazil and reached global trade routes only after the 16th century, but the principle his decree reflected was ancient and universal. Portable nut and dried fruit combinations appear in the provisions of Persian cavalry, in the packs of Arabian desert traders, in the field rations of Roman legions. The form varied. The logic was identical. Cashews provide approximately 74 milligrams of magnesium per ounce, alongside copper, which is required for the proper functioning of cytochrome C oxidase, an enzyme in the mitochondrial electron transport chain, the mechanism your cells use to produce ATP from oxygen. This is not a trivial detail. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions, and copper participates in the final step of the energy production process that magnesium helps initiate. They are complementary, not redundant. Dried apricots contribute potassium and a smaller magnesium component. Look specifically for unsulfured apricots, the dark brown ones, not the bright orange. The orange color in conventional dried apricots is preserved by sulfur dioxide, a processing additive with no nutritional benefit and documented sensitivity reactions in some individuals. The brown, unsulfured apricot tastes slightly more tart and concentrated, because that is the actual apricot. Combine raw cashews with unsulfured dried apricots in roughly equal parts by volume. Portion into small containers at the beginning of each week. Keep one in a bag, one in a car, one at a desk. The trail mix traditions of ancient traveling cultures survived because the combination worked, sustained energy, satisfying flavor, genuine mineral density, in the most demanding physical contexts imaginable. It still works. The context has changed. The mineral needs have not. Number 4. Dark chocolate-covered almonds. The almond tree is one of the earliest flowering trees of the Middle East. It blooms in January or February in the Levant, before almost anything else. This early flowering made it a symbol of watchfulness and first action throughout ancient Israelite culture. In Ecclesiastes 12:5, the almond tree is used as a metaphor for the whitening hair of old age. In Numbers 17, Aaron's rod sprouts almonds overnight as a sign of divine selection. In Jeremiah 1:11-12, God shows the prophet an almond branch and says, "You have seen well, for I am watching over my word to perform it." The Hebrew word for almond shacht shares a root with the word for watchful or wakeful. The almond was not just food. It was a cultural shorthand for vigilance and vitality. Medieval Islamic physicians, drawing on Greek and Persian medical traditions, classified almonds among what Ibn Sina Avicenna called the sustaining foods, those capable of maintaining bodily strength across extended periods without access to elaborate preparation. His canon of medicine records a specific preparation of ground almonds with honey and saffron, administered to patients recovering from wasting illness, a preparation that modern nutritional analysis would describe as providing magnesium, vitamin A, and bioavailable glucose in a single dose. 1 ounce of almonds provides approximately 76 milligrams of magnesium and 7.3 milligrams of vitamin E, a nutrient that functions as a fat-soluble antioxidant protecting cell membranes from oxidative damage. Magnesium's role in insulin receptor function is documented. Adequate magnesium improves the receptor's sensitivity to insulin, contributing to more stable blood glucose. Dark chocolate, 70% cacao or higher, adds flavonols that independently support nitric oxide production and vascular relaxation. The fat in almonds slows the absorption of the natural sugars in the chocolate, moderating the glycemic response that chocolate alone would produce. Coat dry roasted or raw almonds in melted dark chocolate. Kept below 115 degrees Fahrenheit during melting. Spread on parchment. Refrigerate until the chocolate snaps. Portion into small bags of 12 to 15 almonds. A single serving of meaningful magnesium, without tipping into the caloric range that undermines the benefit. The combination is portable, shelf-stable in the refrigerator for 3 weeks, and contains no ingredients that require a chemistry degree to recognize on a label. Avicenna recommended almonds for those who had grown weak. The research suggests the recommendation was physiologically sound. The research often catches up to the observation. It simply takes longer. Number 3. Spinach and egg muffins. In the 6th chapter of Numbers, the Nazirite vow forbids, among other things, grape products, wine, vinegar, made from wine, grape juice, fresh grapes, raisin. The vow is about consecration through abstinence, but embedded in its food language is a deep familiarity with specific foods and their physiological effects, consistent with a culture that paid careful attention to what different foods did to the body and the mind. Leafy greens do not appear with the drama of figs or grapes in Scripture, but they appear constantly, reliably, in the background of the diet, gathered by the poor in the field, according to Ruth. Consumed in bitter form at the Passover table, included among the wild plants gathered by the students of the prophets in 2 Kings. They were ordinary food precisely because they were available everywhere and sustained people through lean seasons. The biochemistry of why begins with chlorophyll. Every molecule of chlorophyll, the compound that makes leafy green plants, green is built around a magnesium atom at its center. Not near its center. Not associated with it. A magnesium atom is the structural core of the chlorophyll molecule. This means that every time you eat something green, spinach, chard, kale, watercress, arugula, you are literally eating magnesium in its most ancient biological form. The mineral was built into the structure of plant life at the cellular level before human beings existed to measure it. 1 cup of cooked spinach provides approximately 157 milligrams of magnesium, comparable to pumpkin seeds by volume. It also provides iron, folate, and lutein, a carotenoid compound with documented associations with reduced macular degeneration risk in aging adults. Pairing spinach with eggs adds complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids, and the fat in egg yolk supports absorption of the fat-soluble compounds in the greens. There is also an underreported interaction worth naming. Oxalates organic acids present in raw spinach bind to calcium and, to a lesser degree, magnesium, reducing their bioavailability. Lightly cooking spinach breaks down the oxalate structure significantly, improving the mineral availability of everything in the leaf. This is why virtually every traditional culture that used leafy greens medicinally cooked them first. They didn't know the word oxalate. They knew that cooked greens worked better. The observation preceded the explanation by several thousand years. To prepare spinach and egg muffins, whisk 8 eggs with 2 cups of finely chopped cooked spinach, a pinch of salt, black pepper, and a small amount of crumbled feta. If desired, feta adds calcium that works synergistically with the magnesium in the spinach. Pour into a lightly oiled 12-cup muffin tin. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 18 to 20 minutes, until just set a slight jiggle in the center is correct. They firm further as they cool. They store refrigerated for 5 days. Eat 2 as a snack. You will have consumed something close to 60 milligrams of bioavailable magnesium in under 10 minutes. At a cost of less than 50 cents per serving. The people who ate greens through the lean seasons were not doing it for pleasure. They were doing it because greens kept them functional. The mechanism was chlorophyll. The mechanism was magnesium. They called it what it was: necessary food. Number 2. Edamame with sea salt. Soybeans have been cultivated in China for at least 3,000 years. The Benchao Gangmu, the Compendium of Materia Medica, compiled by Li Shizhen in the 16th century, drawing on centuries of accumulated Chinese medical knowledge, classifies soybeans and their preparations as supportive to the spleen and stomach, restorative after exhaustion, and beneficial to the circulation of qi, the traditional Chinese concept of vital energy. Young soybeans, steamed and eaten directly from the pod, appear in Chinese culinary records as early as the Han Dynasty as a revitalizing food given to those recovering from physical depletion or illness. The word edamame is Japanese, meaning literally stem beans. The pods sold are still attached to the branch they were harvested from. But the practice of eating young soybeans steamed in pods is documented across Chinese, Japanese, and Korean food traditions, all arriving independently at the same preparation whole, minimally processed, salted, eaten immediately after steaming, because that preparation was most effective at delivering what the body needed. 1 cup of shelled edamame provides approximately 99 milligrams of magnesium, alongside 18 grams of complete plant-based protein, and a meaningful amount of folate. The protein-magnesium combination matters. Protein synthesis, the process by which your body repairs and rebuilds muscle tissue, requires magnesium as a cofactor in the ribosomal assembly process. Without adequate magnesium, protein synthesis slows. This is why a high-protein diet without corresponding mineral support can leave people feeling no better than before they increased their protein intake. The protein arrived, the magnesium to use it did not. Traditional East Asian eating patterns that include edamame regularly also include fermented foods, miso, tempeh, kimchi that support the gut microbiome. This matters because magnesium absorption in the large intestine depends partly on the health of the gut environment. A disrupted microbiome measurably reduces the absorption of minerals, including magnesium. The traditional pairing of whole soybeans with fermented soy products was not accidental. It created the gut conditions that allowed the minerals in the whole food to be absorbed. Steam edamame pods for 5 to 6 minutes in salted water. The salt penetrates the pod during cooking and seasons the beans without requiring additional sodium at the table. Drain and serve warm. Eating directly from the pod, the physical act of extracting the beans slows consumption naturally, which improves satiety compared to pre-shelled beans eaten quickly. If you have been reaching for processed protein bars or recovery shakes after exercise, this is the whole food answer to that habit. It costs a fraction of the price. It tastes better cold the next day. And the magnesium that enables your body to actually use the protein arrives in the same package. The ancient Chinese physicians had no word for ribosomes. They had centuries of careful observation. The observation was, young soybeans restore those who are depleted. The observation was correct. Number 1. Pumpkin seed, almond, and cacao nib power mix. Number 1 on this list is not a single food. That is the point. The most significant insight running through every item we have examined today is this. Magnesium in traditional food cultures was never delivered from a single source. It arrived through patterns, the pumpkin seeds pressed into flatbread, the almonds carried on a journey, alongside dried fruit, the leafy greens stewed with legumes, the bitter cacao drunk alongside seeds and spice. The ancient food traditions that maintain the mineral status of entire populations didn't do it through any one superfood. It did it through a consistent, varied, whole food dietary pattern, in which multiple magnesium-containing foods appeared daily in different combinations. The pharmaceutical model of mineral nutrition says identify the deficient compound, isolate it, concentrate it, deliver it in the highest possible dose. The traditional food model says build a daily pattern in which the mineral arrives from multiple sources in whole food matrices that carry the cofactors required for absorption across the full course of the day. The research increasingly supports the traditional model. Studies comparing isolated magnesium supplementation with dietary magnesium from whole foods have found that whole food sources produce more consistent improvements in clinical markers of magnesium status serum, magnesium, red blood cell magnesium, muscle function, then supplements at equivalent doses. The reason appears to be the cofactors, the healthy fats that improve absorption, the fiber that slows mineral transit and allows the intestine time to absorb what passes through, the synergistic minerals potassium, calcium, zinc that participate in the same physiological pathways magnesium governs, for the number one position on this list. Then, the answer is a combination raw pumpkin seeds for sheer density, raw almonds for the vitamin E and sustained mineral release, cacao nibs for the flavonols and magnesium in the most minimally processed form of chocolate that exists, and a modest addition of unsulfured dried apricots or dates for the potassium and natural sugars that support glycogen restoration after physical activity. Combine equal parts raw pumpkin seeds and raw almonds. Add cacao nibs at roughly half that volume. They are more intensely flavored and more expensive. So a smaller proportion goes a long way. Add a small amount of unsulfured dried apricots or pitted dates, roughly 1/4 of the total volume. Store in a glass jar in the refrigerator. Portion a small handful, approximately 2 to 3 tablespoons, as a late morning or mid-afternoon snack. This is the combination that most closely mirrors what traditional traveling and working food cultures assembled intuitively dense, portable, nutritionally layered, genuinely satisfying. Elijah was given 2 meals before a 40-day walk. You are simply building a better pantry. Every food on this list contains active compounds magnesium-bound within intact cellular matrices, flavonols housed in whole seed coats, chlorophyll built into unbroken plant cells, phytosterols nestled in the lipid layers of unrefined nuts. These compounds are functional in the whole food context because they arrive with the cofactors that make them useful: the fats, the fibers, the synergistic minerals, the enzymes that survive when a food is minimally processed. The industrial food system does not work against these compounds deliberately, but it works against them structurally. Every step that extends shelf life, heat treatment, hydrogenation, rollermilling, emulsification, high-pressure pasteurization tends to degrade or denature the most biologically active parts of these foods first. The flavonols in cacao are heat-sensitive above 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Commercial chocolate manufacturing routinely reaches temperatures twice that. The magnesium in grain is concentrated in the bran. Roller milling removes the bran. The phytic acid in legumes that reduces mineral absorption is degraded by fermentation. Fast food hummus made from non-fermented chickpea concentrate skips that step. The fiber matrix in whole seeds that slows mineral transit and improves absorption is disrupted by grinding and concentrating. The food is there. The compounds are there, but the processing has removed the architecture that made them functional. This is not a conspiracy. It is economics. Shelf stability, uniform texture, and predictable flavor are commercially valuable. Bioactive compounds are commercially irrelevant. The market optimizes for what the market measures. It has never been asked to measure magnesium status in the population, but you can ask, and the answer, as it turns out, is the same answer that appears in the Ebers Papyrus, in the Benchao Gangmu, in the Charaka Samhita, in the first chapter of Daniel, and beside the head of a sleeping prophet under a broom tree in the wilderness. Eat the whole food. Eat it with its matrix intact. Eat several of them, together, regularly, and trust the convergence of 4,000 years of careful observation pointing at the same conclusion that the research is only now beginning to explain. If this perspective is useful to you, hit like and share this video with someone in your life who has been told that fatigue and muscle cramps are simply part of getting older. They may be a mineral state that a handful of pumpkin seeds can begin to address. Leave a comment below telling me which item on this list surprised you most. I read every one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do so now. We cover the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern nutritional science every week, and the questions we haven't yet answered are more interesting than the ones we have. The best time to fill a mineral gap was 20 years ago. The second best time is this afternoon.